Hello, everybody. Welcome to Woman Up. My name's Leah, and I'm, as usual, joined by Sue. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Leah. How are you today? Nice
I'm
and
okay.
hot.
Yeah, I've done enough moaning about the heat. Can't really change it, so we'll
Well,
just
it's not
crack
summer
on.
yet, though, is it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, so today we're joined by Ruth. Hi, Ruth. How are you?
Right, good, thank you.
Ruth is a dedicated aged care worker who has devoted 13 years of her life to the aged care sector, an additional 3 years serving in the community. Her commitment to her professionalism is mirrored in her athletic accomplishments, which is evidenced by the numerous sporting awards that she's won. But beyond her individual achievements, Ruth's heart resonates with a deep concern for her safety of her colleagues, both in aged care and in the community. Her advocacy spills over to the realm of female sports, a domain she staunchly believes needs preservation for the important emotional well-being and physical benefits it offers women. Ruth is here to shed light on an ongoing issue. She's here to talk about her experience working in aged care and being expected to partake in the delusions and sexual fetishes of men who enjoy playing make-believe that they are actually women. Ruth can attest to the fact that aged care workers are expected to treat these kinds of men as women and dress them in women's clothes, including women's underwear and makeup. And if the workers refuse to indulge these men in their delusions, they lose their jobs. Okay, so firstly, before we get into the aged care disaster, I'm interested to know about your sporting background.
Okay, so it's school level sports, but I've won like with running and lots of other sports. I made it up to a state level of the 400 meters, and also did steeplechase. It was the first time I'd done a steeplechase, but if you made it to that level, they automatically let you do a steeplechase run. So yeah, they're school level achievements, but for me they were big because at school I had a difficult time, and I don't know how I would have gotten through it if I hadn't been good at sports, because every time I won something it was a shot of self-esteem. And I did do training, not Olympic level training, but I did take time out of my day to go for a run and exercise. So if a boy had been winning my sports awards, then that's what got me through those difficult times I wouldn't have had.
Yeah, totally understand that.
We sort of concentrate, on the issue of men and boys and women's sports at the elite level, as if anything underneath the elite level doesn't matter, but it does. Any level of sport matters.
Yeah, because like even if you steal $1 for someone, you've still stolen something from someone, even if it wasn't $1 million, and even if it's just school level, that's still stealing, even if it's not going to the Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important for every aspect of life. I feel like especially the kids are being really thrown under the bus with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You write a really awesome piece about trans identifying men in aged care, and you ask if transgender rights are impinging on the rights of women, and I think we can all agree that they are not just impinging, but they're trampling all over them.
Yeah.
So can you tell us when you first noticed that something was wrong in aged care?
Yeah, so it was a few years back, maybe 7 years back now, but I got sent to a man's home. So a townhouse. He had a wound on his back and I had to change his wound. I wasn't given a warning that this was a transgender man. I just turned up on his doorstep. He was wearing a gown and nothing underneath. And every time I went, he was wearing just a dressing gown. The dressing gown was always open at the front. And so the wound was just where your pants and your shirt meet. So all I would have had to have done is pull his shirt up, pull his pants down a little bit, do the wound, but because he was wearing a dressing gown, I had to pull the dressing gown to the side, so that showed me his bum. And then when he turned around, I could see his vagina and breasts, when I didn't need to see that. Like, even with a woman, you wouldn't need to see that much of their body just to do a wound on their back. And then when I was in his apartment, I realized I had noticed he's got a lot of sports awards, and normally I would have said, oh wow, you've got lots of sports awards, but I noticed that it had written on those certificates and awards that it was a women's sporting event. So I decided to ignore them, but he would point them out to me and say, I won this award in a women's sports competition. It was a women's sports competition. And then he would do a silent laugh. So he would emphasize that it was a woman's, and he found it amusing. I've never laughed about any of the sports awards I've won, because there's nothing funny about winning a race fair and square. So that to me tells me that he knows full well that he's a man, and he's doing this to rile women up and distress them.
Yeah.
God. It's just unreal that you have to deal with this.
Yeah.
And you say that if you, so let me go back. Has this always been a thing, or is this a new thing?
Well, like transgender people say that they've been bullied and harassed, but growing up, I'd never seen a man or a woman dress in the opposite gender's clothes. I think most people would never have. So most people have never harassed anybody. Going into healthcare, we were told, like, they gave us a scenario where a rapist had just been arrested and got injured during the arrest. He gets taken to hospital, he's handcuffed to the hospital bed, and when he goes to the shower, he's handcuffed to the shower chair, and a police officer stands in the doorway. So they said, you might be asked to shower or care for a rapist, but like, there are precautions taken. So, but I'm sure even if there were precautions and you were really uncomfortable with that, you could still opt out of that. But nobody ever said, and by the way, there are men who like to dress as women, and if you're found in that situation, then you be required to help them with that, because it was just unheard of, or not even thought about back then, I think. So yeah, I had only looked after one transgender man in that time, but I've had more experiences since then.
You've had more experiences in aged care?
Yeah, I can give you 3 more experiences if you want to hear them.
That's just unreal that one person has had this many problems with this.
Yeah.
So yeah. Can you give us some more?
Yeah. I went to a nursing home, and on the other side of the room, I could see this man, but I could, like, there was something different about him. Like, his face looked really angular. Well, some transgender men, their faces look really angular and unusual for some reason. And I wondered if he was a transgender person, but then I just kept doing my job. And then I had to go and see a resident who was behind him, and I had to walk past him, and it would have been obvious that I wasn't stopping to talk to him, I was stopping to talk to somebody else. And as I approached him, he said, hi, my name is, and he gave a female name. And then he said, I'm a transgender person, but I'm not wearing my paraphernalia today. And I thought that was a strange way to greet a complete stranger, because I never say to people, hi, my name is, I'm a heterosexual female. Like, if you want people to know those things about you, it'll just come up in the conversation when you're talking about other things. So yeah, it was a strange way to introduce yourself. And like, I'm a woman and I wear women's clothing every day, not just when I feel like it. And I thought it was strange that he called it paraphernalia, because I call my clothing and my makeup.
I guess what he was doing was trying to get a response from you, because they do like to, I guess, shock or, you know, that sort of thing. So that's where they get their kicks.
Yeah.
making women feel uncomfortable. And I'd imagine that's exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, I think so too, because he wasn't mobile. So he wouldn't be able to go down the street or anything. He would have to wait till people walk past him in that situation if he wanted to shock somebody.
Yeah.
And then I know I wasn't there that day, fortunately, but I know of a nursing home that on a resident's request had a drag queen party. The resident who requested it just dresses male. I don't know if he calls himself transgender, but he wanted this transgender party. And yeah, so like because we have diversional therapists who organize social activities for everybody, and it didn't seem to it seemed like this person who organized the party for him is pro transgenderism, so I don't think it compromised this person's values. But if you do disagree with transgenderism, I wonder if you'd be able to say that you don't want to be involved in organizing these kinds of events. And some nursing homes have big activity rooms. So if you want to be around other people, but you don't want to talk to them, you just want to be around other people, you could sit down the back and get some human contact while being alone. But this was a small activities room, and it had staff would have had to have gone in and out to get to other facilities that we needed to get to. And yeah, so like drag queens are very sexually dressed, and they parody women, and they, well, most women just talk normally, like, but there are women who talk really, I can't think of the word, but yeah, they copy these sexualized women and these sexualized stereotypes of women. And yeah, and if these drag queens were dressed this way and talking this way because they wanted to shock people, because like I think drag queens are more accepted than have been more accepted than transgender people. Like with Damon Edna Everidge, like I don't think he was a drag queen or something.
No, he wasn't. No.
Yeah, but if you are a cross-dresser and you're good at singing and dancing, you could use that as a more palatable way to find an avenue to shock people by just pretending that you're this performer who dresses up like a lady sometimes. Yeah, so I think
it's really incredible that even in aged care, this is impacting like that.
Yeah,
it's just, when do these men who believe they're women, the autogynephile, right up to the end, they still want to shock women and oppress women and behave this way.
A lot of them come into it when they're a lot older, though, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yes, especially now.
Yeah.
So when you had that experience with the man with the gown on, and you saw everything, could you complain to anyone about that?
I didn't, because of two things that happened at my workplace. So it was gearing up to the plebiscite, and this nurse at my work who is pro homosexual marriage, she said that she wanted to write a pamphlet for our male clients who practice homosexuality about STDs that they are prone to, and she got shouted down. And the woman who suggested this pamphlet was a level above the people who shouted her down. And like normally, if you disagree with somebody who's above you at work, you tell them tactfully, and if you can't change their mind, then you just do it. So it made me wonder like what reaction I would get if I said I didn't feel comfortable going to this man's house by myself. Also, this man, he was running out of dressings. So I said to the next person who was going to his house, make sure you bring some dressings because he's running out. And she said, she. And it's like, he's a whole suburb away. And when someone looks like a man, because he had breasts and a vagina, but that was it. Everything else looked male, and he still walked and talked male. So it's really hard to remember to say she when they look, talk, walk, and act male.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it's not a real vagina.
Yeah.
He's had his penis inverted.
Yeah. Yeah, I tried not to look, but it was right there, so I caught a glimpse. Yeah.
That's why women don't speak up, because they're scared of the ramifications of what's going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
you could lose your job if you refuse to play along with this.
Yeah, well, I've sent emails to lots of different people, and when I get a reply, it's never, oh, don't worry, if you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to do that work. It's always, they send me a policy or legislation or comments such as, I think in my article, I've got it here, it says you have to treat these people with respect and dignity, and always telling me the rights of the transgender person instead of telling me what my rights are.
And I guess with in relation to transgender people, they do have the right to healthcare and to be treated with respect and dignity.
Yeah,
they've got to treat the healthcare worker the same way. To intentionally make you feel uncomfortable. It's then they're not. It's not reciprocated.
Yeah.
No one's saying that they don't deserve this sort of care. They do. They're human beings. They deserve care, but they're using the healthcare worker as part of their sexual fetish.
Yeah, they are.
I also had to do diversity training for NDIS, and in the video it said, if your client wants to go to a pro-homosexuality rally, you have to accompany them. And it said, if a young wheelchair-bound female wants to be dressed in fishnet stockings, a short skirt, or other clothing you feel is provocative, you have to help them put it on. So I guess that applies that if you have to go to a homosexual rally with them, you also have to go to a cross-dressing party with them. If a woman wants to be dressed a certain way, you have to. If a man wants to be dressed a certain way, you have to. I emailed the NDIS and said, during the plebiscite, some no voters were physically assaulted by yes supporters. And I said, if I attend a homosexual rally and it becomes apparent I'm not enjoying it, how can they guarantee that I won't be physically assaulted or intimidated in some way? And they sent me an abrupt email that said I should discuss this with my employer. So it sounds like you have to stick your neck out there and say that you don't feel comfortable and you're not real sure how your employer will react to your concerns.
You approached the union too, didn't you?
Yeah, I approached a union that I thought might be sympathetic because of some cases they've tried to fight for in the past. And so I rang them and they said they couldn't help me. They also, I can't remember exactly who, but they sent me a phone number to another organization, and that organization sent me a phone number to another human rights organization who sent me the phone number to another one who sent me back to the first person that I had rung up. And one of the organizations, I'm pretty sure they put me on fake hold while they said they were discussing it with their staff. It just sounded like it was a bit short. Like when they put me on hold, it was a bit short and not really something they discussed, but I can't prove that. Yeah. So like even unions have a lot of power, but they don't, they're either intimidated to bring this subject up because they know they'll get lashed back, or they just don't care about the subject. They think that everyone should be pro-transgender.
Yeah, the unions are very captured by the gender ideology. So
who isn't captured at this point? It's just unreal.
Yeah, who isn't captured that's in power?
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that, and they're the ones that aren't having to deal with these issues. Yeah. It's okay for them to force people into that situation because they don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's right. Because I thought of two other mainstream media people I could ask for help with this, but they didn't reply. And even some people who are sympathetic to this cause who are in the media, and they didn't reply. So even like I also contacted conservative right-wing groups, and they agreed that it wasn't a good situation to be in, but they didn't do anything. They didn't even write a Facebook post to make people aware of this. So people either think they seem to think it's a small issue, but because when that man referred to his female clothing as paraphernalia, I did a little bit of research to see what kinds of stuff transgender men wear. And like some transgender people might just be confused about what gender they are. But like I sent you university level articles that say that this is a fetish.
Yeah, that's the autogynephile. Yeah.
Yeah. And so some people are doing it for sexual reasons.
Well, apparently, I think it was Mr. Mena. I was rewatching one of his videos, and he cited some research from Ray Blanchard and 75% of men that are transgender are actual autogynephiles. So that's a hell of a lot of autogynephiles out there.
Yeah, it's the article that's at the bottom of my article says that they experience intense sexual arousal at least the first time. I found a website that states it's been selling cross-dressing supplies since 1984. That gives transgender men things they can buy, and it says lifelike. It sells a lifelike silicone female mask, but this mask doesn't look realistic at all. It has this plastic expressionless look on it. It's quite frightening to see. They also sell silicone breasts and latex nipples, and all the language on the website is sexualized. It says they sell a male to female transformation kit, which includes a mini clingy black dress, black silky stockings, black sheer tights, black tardy fishnet stockings, a pack of 3 lacy silky panties, a lacy suspender belt. So that's all sexualized language. They don't sell sports bras.
They've always been there, but the difference now is they're overt with it. It's always happened. So, when you said you went back to 1984, well, they've always been there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't socially acceptable or pushed down our throats.
Yeah.
But now with the trans ideology, they're allowed to be overt about it and express their sexual fetish, and us as the general public, because these men who pretend to be women now, and it's a sexual fetish, they're celebrated by politicians, by industry, and they need to go back into the, realise it's not socially acceptable. Don't push it on innocent people. We don't care what they do in their own homes.
Yeah.
You as an aged care worker should not have to put up with that.
Yeah. It says they sell underwear that allows a man to wee while sitting down, and underwear that enables them to experience penetrative sex. I'm not sure how that works, but this website also sells breast enlarging cream, and it calls it it says bottom shaping gel and hourglass body shaping gel. So if a man has lost the use of his hands, a nurse would have to rub those creams on his breasts and bum.
My God.
One of the reasons why men dress this way is so they can experience lesbian sex. So if a female nurse is rubbing cream on a man's breast, then he's having this lesbian sex experience. And like they say that gender is fluid. So even if a male nurse is rubbing this cream on him, how does the male nurse know that he hasn't magically become a homosexual man within the last hour, and now he's involved in this male homosexual sex experience? So you can't even say to a male nurse, I don't feel comfortable rubbing this cream on this man, could you do it? Because if this man's gender fluid, then that puts the male nurse in a position that he might not enjoy being in.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's just always, like you say, these people working in jobs that need to be done, that just people in power don't give two thoughts about.
Yeah.
Not thinking about the care workers. They're not thinking about people working in these care homes.
Yeah. And all the clothing on this website is modeled by biological women. And I think the reason why they do that is because they know if they show pictures of men wearing these outfits, they'll see that when a man wears female outfits, it makes him look more masculine because it emphasizes his angular face, his angular body. And so men will go, oh, well, that's not going to make me look like a woman. And then they wear it quiet.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And it's always the fishnets and the stilettos and the push-up bras.
Yeah.
Never the pregnant, swollen ankles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, like people in government, they don't have to deal with any of this.
No.
And then when you bring it up, they
know.
call you a transphobe, a bigot, a Nazi.
Yeah. And like I was a young woman when I started, and like when you're young, you don't have many sexual experiences, and you hopefully haven't had many experiences with men that make you feel uncomfortable. Also back then there was lots of bullying and terrible stuff in nursing homes, which is why we had a royal commission. And if you feel like you're being bullied in your nursing home and you're really young, you might not feel like you can speak up and say, I don't feel comfortable with this patient, could somebody else look after?
So are you talking about the bullying from management and the residents?
Yeah, I worked at a nursing home where just everyone was a bully. The staff and the residents, they were just at each other all the time, and I don't know how it got that way. I just turned up on my first day and went, wow, this is what I thought nursing homes were like.
Yeah. Goodness.
So have you experienced, because you went to a Let Women Speak rally?
Yeah.
Did you get any pushback for that?
No, I didn't experience any repercussions from that, probably because no one there knew me. And everybody there was like agreed that men shouldn't be dressing as women, and some of them are doing it for sexual reasons. But yeah, I try not to, like, I don't talk about politics at work. I don't talk about politics with my friends because these days that's a really risky thing to do. So I don't know how much support there is from the public about whether women should be placed in these situations.
I'm sure the majority of the public would agree that they shouldn't.
I hope so.
But, you know, unfortunately, the general public, they don't listen to us.
Yeah.
So what about your local MP? Have you tried your member?
At an election a few years back, I went to vote, and the Labor candidate was handing out how to vote cards, and I told him about this situation, and he said that you can't lose your job and to talk to my employer about it. He also said the plebiscite was not about transgender people, it was about homosexual marriage. So he said I wouldn't face any repercussions, but I think it's pretty obvious that we have seen people lose their jobs and have bad stuff written about them, and although they would have gotten their jobs back again, because you still can't fire someone for their political or religious views.
If you speak to lesbian and the LGB, they were worried that after the plebiscite for the marriage equality, they could see what was going on with the trans movement, and they were ringing alarm bells or saw red flags quite a long time ago, and no one was listening to the LGB about what was coming.
Yeah, during the plebiscite, I went to 2 pro-LGBTQ rallies just to hear what they had to say, and some of the people in the audience were transgender men, and one of the speakers was a transgender man. Well, I didn't know it to begin with, but when he got up to speak, I thought he was going to say, oh, I'm really looking forward to this plebiscite because then I'll be able to marry another man. He didn't say that. He said, I'm really looking forward to this plebiscite because then I'll be able to cut my genitalia off and look more like a woman. And in the audience were LGBTQ people, but I could hear them saying that they didn't think that was a good idea. And so even though that Labor politician said the plebiscite wasn't about transgender people, those transgender men believed that this would help them get through as well.
Yeah, they've piggybacked off of everything.
Yeah. And
what a shame.
These rallies were held in the inner city parks, And while I was waiting for one of the rallies to begin, a man with a waist-length hair, wearing masculine black motorcycle clothes, rode up on a very masculine motorbike. The next time I saw him, he was wearing a bikini and heels. And I thought, I've been to a few inner city political rallies, and all the women just wear normal clothing. I don't know any woman who would turn up to an inner city rally dressed in a bikini and heels, because we all know how men would react to that. So these men say that they feel like women, but they don't have the mentality or the behavior of most women. Most women would find that a really intimidating thing to do.
Yeah, they portray women as they think women should be dressing. So, you know, because they say they make better women than women do, you know, that's what they think a woman is, and what a woman should be is dressing and behaving like that. In reality, that's not how women.
No, they wouldn't, because they would be put at far too much risk. Imagine if every woman just wore a bikini out.
Yeah.
And
but most women don't. Yeah, but most women don't want to dress like that.
No.
So, and it's not reality, but in their mind, that's what makes a woman, and that's how they dress, because they just see portraying a woman is just being sexual.
And they cannot understand, they cannot put themselves in our shoes and understand why we don't feel safe with men in our safe spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, like our sexuality is one aspect of us. There's lots of different things that we are interested in, and roles that we have, like mothers and sisters and teachers and aunts. We're not just sexual people.
But their whole being is just the sexual fetish. That's all it's about, is you know, affirming their performance, and that's exactly what it is. It's a performance, and it's not a very good one.
No, it's not convincing. Have you ever been convinced?
No.
It's a very B-rated performance.
Yeah, they're pathetic. So what they see in the mirror when they look at themselves, they see this gorgeous looking woman, and everyone else sees a delirious man pretending, putting on a performance, pretending to be a woman, and pretending that he's behaving like a woman, when what he's actually doing is not feminine at all.
Yeah.
It's just a depraved man.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Also, Ruth, how do you think, because it will also go the other way, where aged care residents will be put at risk because they'll end up with carers that are transgender themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I know of a nurse who said that they got a transgender man admitted to their ward, and the only bed they had left was, well, actually, that all the beds were full except for one, and it was in a female room, and they were wondering whether they should put him in there, because like if they tried to put him in a men's room, would he complain that they're not seeing him as a woman? And if they put him in the woman's room, will the women complain because they feel uncomfortable? And she said, right at the last minute, a patient got discharged, a male patient got discharged. Well, actually, a patient got discharged in a way that it made it so the transgender man could be by himself. And so they didn't have to make that decision. But if that hadn't happened, I wonder.
What about workers, aged care workers that are trans, so treating the elderly? And, you know, guess a lot of people in aged care homes don't understand about the gender ideology, and they see an aged care worker come through and it's a man in a dress. And, you know, we've just had in Queensland, the hate speech and vilification amendments passed last Thursday. They haven't come into effect yet. So if you misgender someone, then you're breaking the law, that sort of thing. So how in your experience, do you think these people in aged cares that are residents, if they were confronted with a trans person, and the dangers that could possibly these residents find themselves in?
Well, so this nursing home that had the transgender party, it seemed to me that the other residents, when the man who wanted that party was there, they seemed to be walking on eggshells around him. So because like they have games and stuff, and so when he'd win something or he'd do a really good shot. It seemed like they were being extra encouraging because they were nervous that if they weren't, then maybe he'd think, oh, they're like
Was that the resident though? Wasn't that organised or wanted the resident organised that, not the staff member?
Yes, I don't know who organised it because I wasn't there that day, but from photos I could see that the diversional therapist, like from her face, her smile on her face, she seems like she was fully on board with this transgender thing. Yeah, but I don't have any proof that.
So you haven't come across any aged care workers that are like a trans-identifying male pretending to be a woman? Not at this stage anyway.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's worrying, because people and kids with autism have been like punished for using the wrong pronoun, which is the right pronoun, but the wrong politically correct pronoun.
Yeah.
So if you've got someone in an aged care setting that's got memory problems, dementia and things, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to be punished for using the wrong pronoun?
Well, that overseas, was it Norway, where it was an 82-year-old man, and an aged care worker came in to deal with him, and he misgendered the trans-identifying male, and he went into the kitchen and he stabbed this 82-year-old man to death.
Wow.
So it is happening overseas, and that's just an instance of, and then it was reported that the trans-identifying male said he was teasing him about his gender, but we all know that they don't often tell it as it is. It could have been that he was just confused. He saw a man in a dress and, you know, being 82, needed a carer. He may have just questioned this man. And so he got stabbed to death in the head, in the chest. He got stabbed multiple times. And this is the risk that residents will be put in, because when because they're not, let's face it, they're not mentally stable to begin with. So
that's an understatement. But it's not about them, you know, it's not about them being trans per se. It's the fact that if you've got women in a vulnerable situation, then they should be cared for by other women. Simple.
And like when I went to that transgender man's house, I had a disconcerted feeling in my stomach and my skin felt weird. So when I read that this was a fetish, like I could understand why I felt that way. But if children and people with dementia are feeling that way too, like you're not supposed to talk to children about sex. So you can't say to the child, oh, you're feeling this way because this is a fetish. So this child's going to live in confusion until he gets to the age where you can start talking to them about sex. And so it's not a nice way for a person with dementia to live. And if the patient is a child and a transgender man gets sent there, then that's going to be confusing for the child. And
did you have to see that man more than once, did you say?
Yeah, at least 4 times.
How were you feeling every time you had to go back to that house?
Every time every time I left, I was just so glad to be out in the sunshine. And thinking, oh, I'm so glad I'm out in the sunshine and not buried in a national park somewhere, because if a man's dressing as a woman, he's not thinking straight. And so what else is he capable of?
How awful that you feel like that when you're doing what you're being paid to do for work.
And because I did see this man down at the shops, and he was wearing a very short skirt, and you could see that he looked elated. He was with a family member. The family member looked embarrassed. And so like I have got another experience with a transgender female where the family member looked embarrassed. So these people put their own comfort first. They don't care if even their family members are feeling uncomfortable about the way they're dressed.
So you'd think that you'd get extra training for all this?
So
have you had any?
We got my workplace has a harassment and discrimination in the workplace course. So I think it touched on that kind of thing. It just says the workplace must be free of discrimination and harassment. Harassment and discrimination can be direct or indirect. Harassment is conduct or behavior towards a person that a reasonable person feels might humiliate, offend, or intimidate. It must be unwelcome or uninvited. It says sexual harassment and comments that degrade or stereotype are unlawful. It is never appropriate to have magazines, posters, pictures, or email messages with sexual content in the workplace. Sexual jokes and offensive sexual gestures are forms of sexual harassment. So wouldn't that be what a transgender man is? It's a sexual, sexual behavior that humiliates, offends, and intimidates some people.
Yeah.
So if I'm not allowed to humiliate, offend, or intimidate him, he can't do that in return to me.
Unfortunately, you would think that would be the case, but these days, no, it's not.
Yeah, my workplace policy also says copying someone's accent is sexual harassment. And when transgender men do these, it's kind of like a lisping, sexualized woman's voice. Isn't that what they're doing? Like they're parodying us. So that would be harassment, I would say.
Yeah.
But how has all of this affected you, like psychologically?
Well, so I work at a few different nursing homes, and every time I turn up, I wonder if there's going to be a transgender man there who wants me to dress him up like a female. I try to only go to nursing homes where I know there isn't a transgender man there yet, but new admissions happen all the time.
Yeah.
So the one where you were treating his wound, how old was he, do you think?
He would have been in his 50s or 60s. Yeah, so young women often wear like short skirts like he did at the shops, but older women have often outgrown that. So he's behaving in an immature way, he's behaving in an intimidating way.
Yeah. And they all do.
Yeah, 50-year-olds should have...
They never dress like a librarian.
No.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Yep. The trans-identifying male that's come into being in 2023, it's always highly sexualized, and and we see them dressing like that in their later life, when you think that's young girls dress like that, and they're usually outgrown by their mid-20s or 20s.
If you have a look on the Reddit called Translator, it's a real you can waste a good hour.
What's it called? Translator.
Yeah, it's called Translator.
As in LATER.
Yeah. And they're all middle-aged men who have just clearly watched far too much porn. They've usually got wives and children. Yeah. And I think a lot of them are doing it in secret, dressing up while their wives are out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of Reddit, but I haven't psyched myself up to read all the transgender stuff there yet. Yeah. I would like to let you know that I have talked to a lawyer, a sympathetic lawyer, since I wrote the article. And he said, because it's showering and dressing people as part of my job description, the only way I could get out of this is with duty of care legislation. So it's against the law for an employer to put an employee in a situation that could physically or psychologically harm them. But it says that it's also against the law for an employee to put themselves in a situation that could psychologically or physically harm them. So he said, if I do meet a transgender man and I feel that this will impact me, just to say I don't feel safe looking after this patient, and when they say why, don't give a reason, because legally you don't have to give a reason for why a task your boss has given you you feel might make you feel bad down the line.
Yeah.
So that's a partial solution, because it would take courage to say that, because it will be obvious why I don't want to dress him. Also, nursing homes are really short staffed and we often work in pairs. So it would also make me feel uncomfortable to fob him off onto another carer who might feel like she doesn't have a choice to say no either because she's the only one left over. If I lose my job, that's one thing, but lots of aged care workers are from overseas and often countries that are poor, and they're often sending money back to their families. So it would take a lot of courage for them also to say, I don't feel comfortable with this, because if they lose their job, the stakes are a lot higher for them.
Yeah, it's awful because these men will know that as well, and they will take advantage of these particular types of women.
Yeah, and like part of the fetish is coercion, so that's coercion in the extreme. Yeah.
So how long have you been learning about AGP?
So when I first left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I enrolled in a university course anyway. And then when I was at uni, it was a degree I knew I didn't want to do, but I thought I'd just do it to fill in my time while I was trying to figure out what I want to do. And while I was doing that degree, I read a book from each section of the library and to help me decide what I would be interested in. And one of those books was a psychiatry book. And I read a page, it said that there's a psychological disorder, they called it, where men dress as women as a sexual fetish. So I knew about it back then. And yeah, but that was just a glance at that page. And then, yeah, when that man called his clothing paraphernalia, I did a bit of research. And yeah, because when you approach politicians, you need to have evidence of why you think laws need to change. So yeah, it's only recently that I've taken a proper look at it.
Yeah, everyone should learn about what AGP is, autogynephilia.
Yeah,
because it's like the driving force behind this.
Yeah.
And then there are people that are forced to play in their paraphilia as well.
Yeah.
And, people that don't want to be a part of it are being forced into it, and people shouldn't be forced into it.
Yeah. Even within the last week, I've seen some old blokey, trucky looking men who have pink nail polish on. And my research has shown that even just wearing one female thing can sexually arouse them. So if you're dressed like a beauty, furry, trucky old man, you know that you don't feel like a female. You know that you're wearing that nail polish to gross people out and just to make them wonder why you're wearing that.
Yeah.
It's horrible, isn't it? It really is.
It is. It's so. Do you think that there's an end to this, or do you see it just getting worse in the aged care and in the care work world?
Yeah. So the older generation, they would never have thought of this issue. So most of them are still dressing the way they always have, but the younger generation are getting taught that this is normal behavior. And where once growing up, I'd never seen a man or a woman wear clothing of the opposite gender, I can think of 15, maybe even 20 occasions now where within my locality, I could go and see a man dressed this way. They even dress this way, like as shopkeepers. So as the younger generation gets put into nursing homes, there'll be more of them, because at the moment I can dodge 3 transgender men, but if there's like half a nursing home full of transgender men, you can't say to your employer, oh, I don't feel comfortable showering that patient, because you've got 50% of them that need help with showering and dressing. So once the younger generation comes in, it'll be harder to dodge them and harder to say, oh, I don't feel comfortable caring for that patient, even though I think it will psychologically damage me in the long run.
But even with sex self-ID, it's going to increase more and more and more. And as long as men are watching this porn and are becoming porn saturated,
That's what's so frustrating about this, because you can see it coming down the track.
Yeah.
You can see this is how some men are, and why make it easier for them?
Yeah.
That's what we've tried to do, warn the politicians and basically beg them to not put this through.
Yeah, like the only solution is to rewind back time, but how do you do that and get everyone to go back to believing that men are men and women are women, and if you put on a dress that still means that you're a man?
Well, the majority of the population knows that. It just seems that it's politicians and industry that don't.
Yeah.
It's up to us as the public to make the politicians listen to us.
Yeah.
You can't do it, alone.
In 10 years' time, the sex change industry is going to be worth billions and billions.
Yeah.
So they want a slice of this pie. They're not going to give it up easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to cost them, because over in America and overseas where this has been around for longer, transgender people are starting to sue doctors for removing their breasts and stuff, because they realized that they were confused at the time that they wanted that surgery. So yeah, they'll get a lot of money to begin with.
They're the younger ones. It's the autogynephiles. It's not them, it's the younger ones, like with the children, when they're telling them they're born in the wrong body, and they don't go through puberty, and then they're having body parts removed and altered. It's a damage that's going to happen to these kids that we're really worried about. Is they'll have a lifetime of medicalisation and heartache and regret. But the autogynephiles, the kids are being used to justify the existence of the autogynephile being out there and open, and having everyone say how stunning and brave they are. And I can't see them ever suing, because that's what they want. Their brains are already rewired. It's the kids, the young ones, that the brain's not. They've been talked into it.
Yeah. Without the children, this movement, it's so hard to sell a sex change surgery to a minor. It's very hard to sell that to people. But if you tell people that they're born in the wrong body, it's an identity problem. It's a lot easier for people to take in and just accept. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a sad situation.
It's crazy. We should have another referendum. I know people hate referendums, but we should have a referendum for this. Do you think that people should be able to just declare their own sex and live as that sex? It would come out 99% no.
Yeah, but that's why the politicians won't.
They'll never do that.
Yeah. Well, they won't, because we'll defeat it without that anyway. It's going to take time. It's crumbling overseas, but in the meantime, because we're just basically, Australia's very new to this and not learning what's going on overseas, we're going to be in it for a while. But it's going to be the public that has to change this, and we will.
Yeah, we will. Ruth, do you have people that you can talk to this when you have a crazy day at work of this kind of shit that you have to deal with? Do you have people that you can talk in your life, or have you got have you been disowned like us?
No, my family and friends are on the same page with this. It's just fortunate. I've only been in 4 or 5 situations, and once I know that situation is there, I've been able to dodge it. But it's when a majority of men start doing this, then it's going to be impossible to dodge. So, but I do have support.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
No, it's horrific. I really feel for you, Ruth. It's just, no one should be put in that situation.
Yeah.
No one.
I hope we can turn it around. It's really positive to see New Zealand just got rid of their Labour government.
Yes, that was very exciting.
Because this problem is coming from Labour and the Greens.
Yeah.
It's unreal. The party that's meant to be for the working person.
Yeah, I wonder how much the gender ideology influenced the New Zealand vote against Labor. It'd be interesting to know, because, with Kelly J being in Wellington, you know, more and more people became aware of the issue, and, you know, so I wonder if it really influenced the outcome of that election. I hope it did.
Yeah, I would say I would be surprised if it didn't. It's a
Yeah.
question that everyone's asking their politicians now.
Yeah.
This bloody woman question. We're having to waste our time on just something so basic, fundamental of what a woman is.
Yeah. And then they're afraid to answer it.
How many years have been wasted on not asking that stupid question?
Yeah. But it has to be asked, because then you realise, is this politician, you know, a complete nutcase?
Yeah.
You know, it's a very basic question. If they can't answer it, then, you know, you don't want to give them your vote. At all levels, at state, federal, and at local government as well, because councils are the ones that have, you know, changing all the toilets to unisex and allowing drag queen story hour at libraries, that sort of thing. So the 3 levels of governments need to be made accountable. So everyone should be asking their state, their federal and local government, what is a woman? Because then they'll find out exactly who they are.
Yeah.
Agreed. Okay, well, I think we'll leave it there then.
Okay, yeah, thanks for being one of the few people to let me raise this issue.
And also, Ruth, if anything comes up, let us know. We'll keep on top of this issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, we want to support you however we can. If it's getting it out there to the rest of, you know, people that watch the channel, then, you know, the more people that are aware of your situation and the more support we can give you.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. All right, then. That went quickly that time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ruth.
Bye.
Bye.